It's becoming more and more undeniable to me what's calling on my heart, what I'm here to do, the conversation I'm meant to lead. And right now in this moment, I just feel like I'm responding to all these messages that I see online. So many thought leaders, so many beautiful souls are out there lifting people up, building them up, causing them to look at their shame, look at their guilt, look at the stories of their childhoods and how they came to be where they are right now. And it feels like my entire lifetime, my entire adult lifetime, even my childhood, I feel like I was always in this conversation of why does it have to be this way? Why does it have to be, why do things have to be a certain way? And I was always reflecting on how I was being parented. I must have been so difficult to deal with for my parents, especially my mom. I remember being a teenager and she would be so stressed out about how fearless I was and how, the level of energy that I would bring to things. I was a disruptor. I would ask questions. I would probe. I would question why we do the things that we do the way we do them, and isn't there a better way? And I could feel the world changing and the times were changing and we weren't keeping up. And I felt like we have to do more to adapt and be resilient. And I was very open-minded and my mom was not. And I could see that it was a safety thing. It was, trying to keep me from experiencing harm, disappointment, breakdown. And I just thought, that's life. Like, I need to get out there. I need to experience things, And yeah, there's something right now. I don't know. I'm feeling this energy right now that I had to just grab my phone and record this. I'm not jumping on camera or anything because I feel like the message is just in my heart and it's not about anything else. I don't think that I can stop the mission that I'm on. It's calling on me that intensely. And until I get it out of my system, say the things, put it out in the world, invite people to listen and get into conversation with me, I won't rest, it feels like. So right now, I'm about to put out a new, in the marketing world, they call it a lead magnet. But I'm putting out a new guide for parents with teens. And it's really anyone that's a parent. I would invite anyone. If you have preteens, it's even better. It'll make the ride smoother, I believe. And I'm just looking at the relationship that can exist between a parent and a child, especially when their child enters adolescence and into the teen years, when they're, forming their identity for the first time. A lot of parents, if they haven't done any self-reflection, if they haven't tuned into the story of their upbringing and how they came into adulthood, how they formed their identity, they may be reflecting on the past when they parent. And when you're in that past, when you're looking at how you grew up, how things were done when you were growing up, I feel like there's something really risky about that behavior. The biggest thing about that is that you're risking, what's the word? I need to put my finger on it. I don't want to just say left behind, but you're not keeping up. The world is changing super, super quickly. There's a lot of forces at play. And if your mind hasn't caught up to everything that's happening and you're in the past, this will be incredibly detrimental to your child. So if you're reflecting on how you were raised, if there were elements of control and let's say shame, or you were taught from a place of fear, like this kind of false sense of security and under the guise of safety or something like that. If you were shamed and if there was guilt, if your parents weren't present, you can possibly need to spend some time first reflecting on that and getting present to yourself and healing things there so that you can connect with your child better. Your child's got their own thing going on. They are an autonomous individual, and the bond between a parent and child in those developmental years, like those first early childhood years into, like let's say 8 years old, 9 years old, when they're starting to look at the world and they might start to awaken to themselves. And especially by the time a child's 10, 11, 12, they are watching you closely. They're watching how you make sense of your world. And they're watching if you have a good grasp on the world in the future that they're facing. The reason is that they are now experiencing their own self-awareness is growing. And at the basic level, they could feel like they're needing to reach for some sort of feeling of safety and security. And if they don't feel a connection with their parent, that their parent is also tuned into that and tuned into them and how they're experiencing the world, they could feel disempowered and they could even feel suppressed. There could be confusion and this loss of trust. There's all these parents that say, do as I say, not as I do. There's that kind of thing. There's, any kind of dynamic between parent and teen, especially, you got to look at the why. Like, why is there such a level of control or disconnection or something there? There's something there to look at. And from the teenager's perspective, they're working on themselves. They're working on discovering who they are. They're working on their own clarity of who they want to be in this world, what their identity is shaping up to be. Their own self-awareness is starting to grow. And anybody that doesn't welcome that and encourage that is going to be seen as a threat, because it's the most natural state for a teenager, is that evolutionary state of discovery of who they are, who they want to be, what they have to offer the world. What are their talents? What are their gifts? What are their skills? What is their competence? When they're in school, what are they really just naturally good at? And does that light them up? Is there a passion there? If none of that, if a parent shows up and they don't show themselves to be present to the child's experience and that developmental, that evolution that's taking place, that transformation that's taking place from child to adult. That's what the teen years are about. There's that autonomy that's taking shape. And by the time they're an adult, they're fully formed and they're their own individual. If that's not encouraged and there's this control mechanism in place and the parent's not present or tuned in, some of the most hurtful stories and connections that I have with teenagers is the parents' unwillingness to be curious about their child, to get to know them. It's one of the most hurtful forms of rejection that a child can experience, and it informs the rest of all the relationships that they'll form in the future. They'll be hesitant and insecure and doubtful and operating from this place where there isn't wholeness. There isn't this confidence there. They don't feel empowered. There isn't I want to put my finger on it, but they're not developing their own resilience to these things because they're disempowered. And we want to get to this place where a child feels worthy. And I'm noticing that there's so much that's going on online. There's so much encouragement. There's so many wonderful people that are building people up, and everything points back to their childhood. If there's any healing to be done, there's this invitation to reflect and say, okay, why is your mind like this? Why does it function like this? And until we can get our minds around how we think, we can't get our minds around how we parent, right? So we got to look at what that old coding and programming was. Why did it take shape that way? I know for me, I feel called to do this work, called to speak to parents, called to invite them into this new conversation with themselves, to be reflective, to see why they feel the impulses and the urges to lead in the way that they do in their parenting relationship. And especially if they come to me and they're asking that they want to do better than just surviving the teenage years. They want to be thriving in those years. Well, it's about that tuning in and that curiosity and creating that connection with the child. And I can tell you, I have yet to meet a teenager that doesn't light up when they're with me, when they truly believe that I'm curious about who they are. It's my access point. It's the easiest connection thing that I can establish is when I'm able to make that connection and say, you know what, it's all inside you. You've got it. Let's explore. Let's investigate. Let's get curious. I want to know you. I want to know what you're all about, what you're here to do, all that good stuff. It unlocks them and it opens this access to all these potentials, all this possibility, all this wonder and amazement about, how they fit into this world and what they're here to create and do. And the parents that can reflect on how they came to be in this position, in this parenting role, and reflect on what their goals are as parents to get their child to their adulthood, developmentally. That's a parent that's done some work and some self-reflection, and they know that they've got to do better, and they have to have this connection. And the struggle is very real to establish that connection. And I understand that. When there's struggle on both sides, the parent side and the teenager, when there's that disconnection, neither party is thriving. They're both in just basic survival mode. And it's just about, I would say, biological needs as opposed to emotional and otherwise. So you're sitting there and you're just getting through the motions of day-to-day life, doing the things, going here and there, going to school, getting ready for things, meals, it's just basic function stuff. And when you want to move that along and you want to develop it further and create a connection and create a deep and meaningful connection where there is this tuned in experience between the parent and the teen, there can be a struggle because there can be a loss of trust. The teenager will be looking very, very acutely at their lived experience so far and be asking, why should I trust you? You didn't care or show interest in me before. And now suddenly you're awakening and aware that this actually matters. Knowing me, being curious about who I am matters. And so that is something that I wanted to just record and talk about today, because suppressing a child's voice when they're developing, suppressing who they're becoming, not being interested, just saying, do as I say, not as that, don't question, just do it. This is very disempowering and damaging. And it doesn't do anything for them to connect with their own power, connect with who they are, understanding that they're growing into this individual that could really do great, wonderful things in the world. But we're never going to know that because they grew up feeling unworthy. There wasn't the validation. They weren't seen. They weren't heard. They'll experience the world as if they're being oppressed. And they'll experience the world as if they're not worthy of being here. So before they can even get out there and launch into life, they will be walking with this message in the back of their mind subconsciously that they're not good enough. And I'm here to disrupt all that. I'm here to shake things up, and I want to help, and I want to transform this. And there's a lot that's at stake. There are many things that are going on. Look at the world, look at how it's changing, look at how quickly things are evolving, and understand how difficult this can be for a child. They're going to need to develop skills to be able to keep up with the changing pace of the world. They're going to need to have a strong sense of themselves. They're going to need to have an identity that they understand themselves well. And when the conditions around them, their environment changes, the world changes, they understand that their identity is evolving with that, and they can evolve with it. And that will strengthen that muscle of resilience, and that can strengthen their resolve and their understanding that they're here to play, they're full out, they're on the court, they feel worthy, they're empowered, and they're here to do amazing, great things and get out of their way, And if you want to feel that, and you want to feel that rising up and coming out of your child, if you want to encourage that kind of boldness and confidence and empowerment, there's some work to do. And that self-reflection's the start, but it's just the start. If you're going to connect with yourself and you're going to say, you know what, I want to do better. I've never taken a minute's time to think about how I was raised. And I've never reflected possibly on how I could do better. Now's the time. This is the invitation. Think about how it would feel if you had a tuned in relationship with your child, where your child was completely convinced that you saw greatness in them and you believed in their greatness. You believed in their talents and their gifts and their skills and all the goodness and wonder that they come with. And you want to unlock and unleash it onto the world. You want them to be living this emboldened, awesome life, full out, full blast, just 100% being at their best, bringing it. I invite you to take a look at my messaging, take a look at what I've got going on. I've got a masterclass that I'm putting together. There's a PDF on trust that you can download instantly and ask yourself a very, very important question. There's just one question to just transform this whole thing. I've talked about it here in this recording, but I've put it together in a document where you can really sit with that thought, ponder that question, and start to see your child in a new light. Start to see a future for your child where you're moving over out of that dominant leader role in their life. You're not in the driver's seat anymore. You're sliding over into the passenger seat, and you're there to guide and support them on this journey into adulthood, where it can be wonderful and amazing, and you can get to know them on a level that's so empowering to both of you that, there's really nothing that's holding you back. You're unstoppable at that point, and you're thriving, and your relationship is tuned in, and there's this deep, meaningful connection that will last. If you can create that for your teen, just imagine what their future, what everything that will come from that, the gifts of that. You can't put a price on it. So I hope that my reflection here today, just talking about where I'm at with all this and why I just feel so compelled that I can't move off of it until I get it out there in the world. I hope you feel connected to that spirit, that urgency of showing up for our young people, for our teenagers and our young adults in a way that supports them in moving with the changes of life, moving with and evolving with what's going on in the world, and bringing their best, and just really feeling like You're making it, they're making it. Life is good. This can be real. This can be a state of being for both parent and child. And I truly believe that. And I want to transform that. If there's something that you're struggling with there, that's what my work's all about. And where my heart is really at is at supporting anyone that's looking for that kind of clarity so they can really show up in life. And that's what I do when I teach clarity mapping. That's what you'll see on my messaging. I'm always about the mindset, the clarity, and the action. So it's a simple formula, simple framework. I've created some beautiful experiences, and I want to invite you into this conversation with yourself, with your teenager, and let's create a brighter, empowered future for everyone. I believe it's possible. Thanks for listening, and I hope to see you in my communities and in DM and all that good stuff. Thank you.